We're going to bring on our next two guests. Very excited to be bringing back to the show Layla Saliba, who is a Palestinian-American graduate student at Columbia University. She's studying social work with a concentration in policy practice, and she's passionate about disability justice and wants to make healthcare more accessible and affordable for everyone. She was sprayed with a chemical back in January at Columbia University by someone that she thinks was an IDF volunteer. And we're going to get an update from Layla about what Columbia has done about that attack. We're also being joined making their Katie Halper Show debut by Aidan, who is a queer non-binary MSW student at Columbia University, Masters of Social Work student at Columbia University, a Washington, D.C. native. Social justice has always been embedded in their life. They grew up in a household with two strong parents who imbued upon them the principles of challenging the status quo that perpetuates the subversion of marginalized communities. Currently, Aidan is being targeted for their fierce stance against genocide and forced displacement. So welcome, Layla and Aidan.
Thank you so much for having us here. It's so good to be back.
Of course. So tell us what is happening right now on Columbia's campus.
Yeah. Oh man, where do I begin? It's crazy what's been going on with us. But so my name's Layla. I was one of the students that was sprayed with the chemical weapon, and Columbia hasn't really done much of anything. They still haven't sent out a campus-wide email letting people know on campus that this has happened. They've tried to shove this under the rug as much as possible. They have not offered financial help for students that were impacted by the chemicals. Like I had to throw away tons of clothes. My nice North Face coat that I got from Goodwill. I was so excited. I had to throw it away. I had to throw away my nice boots. All that, like, that costs money. And I'm a grad student. I don't have a huge budget, and that's something that other students are dealing with too. And Columbia has not helped them. Instead, what they've done is they've cracked down on freedom of speech and freedom of expression in the name of student safety, but it's not actually keeping students safe. Like they have this new policy where with the designated demonstration zone. So it's like you can only protest in this certain area on campus. And I'm like, well, we were attacked on campus. So having a special zone for us to go protest, that doesn't make sense. Also, they want students to register protests days in advance. And the reality is that it is a genocide. People are dying, and people are not always going to have the foresight or the forewarning to register a protest days in advance. It also takes away from the whole spirit of a protest. The whole point of a protest is to be disruptive and to challenge the status quo. And Columbia University is a university that markets itself on challenging the status quo. It has a nickname known as the Activist IV. They regularly promote, like I know in CSSW, like they promote social justice to us like constantly, and they talk about the 1968, the anti-Vietnam War protests. They talk about those in marketing and to students all the time. But then when it comes to students actually living out the values that they applied to school for, such as social justice, freedom of expression, etc., Columbia really clamps down on it. And it's a really severe type of repression, unlike anything that I've ever seen before, unlike anything that a lot of people in academia have seen before. Like they, for example, they've been monitoring print jobs that say Palestine. Yeah, which is crazy because it's like it's our money. If we want to print something related to Palestine, we should be able to do that. There's that. They've also been surveilling campus Wi-Fi networks. They've been surveilling student emails. They've been using facial recognition technology / AI to identify students at protests. And that's really concerning. None of that actually keeps students safe. It just makes students scared to speak out. And also something too is you can kind of see Columbia, like they claim to care about student safety, but it's like when we were attacked with the chemical weapons, we didn't get a private investigator going and knocking and figuring out what happened. We were literally sitting there. So I was sitting there having to like identify all this stuff myself while I was sick because the university did not believe me. Like with Aidan, they had with other students, they had a private investigator like come and knock on people's door and like scare them.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, you can do that for an event, a teach-in, but you can't do that when we're attacked with chemical weapons. That's hypocritical.
Yeah.
And people are really frustrated with the administration. They don't trust the administration at all. And I think why admin is also cracking down on us is because they know that Columbia students are influential. The current Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, he's a Columbia alum. And donors and trustees are really, really upset with how much Columbia students are supporting Palestine. So they think that if they can just like clamp down on us and suppress us, that will get us to stop supporting Palestine. And I think if anything, it's done the opposite. Like it's really shown the true colors of admin. It's shown how the university does not care, does not prioritize students, and it's also shown too how powerful our speech is. If what we were saying did not matter, then the university would not try to place limits on it.
I'm gonna read a statement. You just texted me something. Where does that come from? Because it does a really good job of laying out what happened in a way that doesn't get anyone into any legal trouble.
Yeah, so that's directly from Joint SJP and CUAD, Columbia University Apartheid Divest.
Okay, great. So let me show you this statement. And of course, SJP has been, is it still banned?
Yes.
They're
So
still bad.
Students for Justice in Palestine has been banned by Columbia University, right? This is
Mhm,
supposed to be a place of free speech and
mhm.
thriving ideas. And what about Jewish Voices for Peace? Is that still banned?
Also banned.
Banned.
Okay. I mean, it is so outrageous. I'm like smiling because I can't. You kind of can't make this
Right?
up. And all the people who talk about cancel culture, where are they? Why aren't they up in arms about this? Two organizations have been banned by a
Mhm,
university. On April 4th, Columbia suspended 5 pro-Palestine students and ordered them to be evicted from their Columbia housing with only 24 hours notice. This happened after Columbia hired ex-cops in an attempt to violate students' rights and interrogate them without lawyers present. We are asking our community members to let the university know that we are paying attention and we find their conduct outrageous. We demand that Columbia immediately revoke these violent eviction and suspension orders and stop targeting pro-Palestine students. So, Aidan, tell us what you experienced.
Yeah, so I was one of the fortunate five to had the private investigators come to my door, and I spoke with them on Monday night, and was in the middle of a meeting myself, so wasn't able to actually speak to them longer. I informed them that I would not want to speak to them without a lawyer present.
mhm.
They informed me that night that I was not under investigation, but however, my participation in the process was mandatory, and if I refused, it would be reported to Columbia. The next morning, I woke up to an email at 7:30 in the morning from the COO of Columbia
Mhm.
stating that I needed to report to public safety or speak to them by 5 o'clock that day. Otherwise, I'd be placed on immediate disciplinary action, which we later came to find out was interim suspension.
Mhm.
Um, Clear violation of my constitutional rights. Come to find out, numerous students also received that threatening email. Um, Immediately, I spoke to legal counsel, and was advised that yes, this was a violation of my rights to, again, self-incrimination and legal counsel. And then as the days progressed, there were negotiations about times that when we could come in or not. About 5 o'clock on Wednesday night, we were notified that we needed to appear by 6 o'clock, or would be placed on interim suspension. I was in the Bronx at my sister's house, not physically able to show up. But quite frankly, I refuse to participate in any sort of process that violates constitutional rights, not only just for myself and not only for the other people involved in this situation, but I want to set a precedent that Colombia cannot keep using and exerting its power over us, um, to get what they want,
Mhm.
to and by doing so violating the law, moral and ethical standards. Um, And so, as part of the interim suspension, I'm not allowed on campus property, which includes my Columbia housing. I was notified at 7:43 on Wednesday night that I had 24 hours to leave my home, that I was not permitted in my home anymore. And essentially 24 hours later, we started eviction defense. We've had anywhere between 60 to 80 people a day pull up in defense of my apartment and somebody else in my building who's also suspended her apartment as well. Just here to show that the community wants us here, but that also Colombia, if they want to go forward with an eviction, has to follow the legal procedures. 24 hours is nowhere near the legal procedures. And Colombia is flagrantly breaking the law and violating our rights without any sort of remorse, without any sort of signs of stopping. So essentially, long story short, that's where we're at right now. This is a part of eviction defense. So thank you for joining us for eviction defense.
Yeah, of course. And we'll put in links and email addresses and stuff for people to contact. Obviously, they're just kind of like right-wing Zionists who are pressuring Colombia to crack down on dissent. But I also saw floating around, there's this leaked email that was sent by a professor to a CSSW student, so that's Columbia School of Social Work student, asking them to remove a Palestinian flag emoji. But I just want to share it because it's such woke washing of racism. They're hiding behind like language of inclusivity. So here's the leaked email. It has recently been brought to my attention that geopolitical emojis used at the end of name info has caused trauma reactions, making it difficult for some to remain present and not dissociate during class session. I know that as the semester started, there were more folks who included the image along their name, but that number has dwindled, and yours was the only one I saw during our last session. I'm asking for your continued partnership in ensuring our class space remains a safe one for all to actively learn and keep any images and or contributions relevant to course content. So what do you guys think about that?
It sounds exactly like the experience that we have. I will say that I'm very fortunate to have some great professors and community members. But there's definitely a small group of people that are controlling the narrative at Columbia and CSSW as well. I really like how you said woke washing. I think that accurately describes our program in general. We're taught to be, we're taught that we're engaging in non-racist or anti-racist social work, when in reality, it's just teaching people how to hide their racism, how to hide their biases through this guise of trauma-informed care. And it's an unfortunate reality that we have. We've tried to bring Palestine into the curriculum. This has been a demand since our sit-in November. We've been consistently ignored. Meetings have been canceled. Rooms have been canceled. So I think this is an accurate representation, though minute, an accurate representation of what our experience is at CSSW.
I will say, the term geopolitical emojis, like, it just makes me laugh because it just seems so ridiculous.
Yeah, it really
And
is.
also, too, it's like talking about Palestine is inherently seen as controversial or political, especially at Columbia. But it's like when it came to, for example, supporting Ukraine, people had no issue with supporting Ukraine.
Imagine someone telling someone to take out a Ukraine flag emoji from their name. It would never in a million years happen. Ever.
It wouldn't
Yeah.
happen. But suddenly, when
Yeah.
you say Gaza or you say the word Palestine, it's controversial. Like, it should not be controversial to be against bombing children. Yet we are constantly made to feel, especially Palestinian students, I am constantly made to feel like a walking national security threat. And it's like, I am a nice person. Like, I rescue birds. I literally got put on canary mission the other day for like
Oh,
writing
congrats.
poetry. Like,
Mazel tov.
I know.
It's a badge of honor.
Honestly, at this point, yeah. But yeah, a lot of time, like, these administrators at Columbia, they will talk all this talk about doing the right thing and socially just practice, but then when it comes to actually walking the walk and putting those values that you claim to care about into action, it's silence. And the silence is noticeable. It's very noticeable. It's very apparent, and it's hypocritical. And frankly, we're sick of it. And we deserve better. Other students deserve better. Like, to be treated so badly at a university, it's like me and you, like, we've both worked hard to get here. And this has been such a frustrating experience. Granted, I've had a lot of really wonderful, like, there are good faculty members at CSSW who've really helped me out and really been there on my side. But just, I would say the level of cruelty and violence from Columbia University administration is unlike anything I've ever seen before. Like, they are making students homeless and they see no issue with it.
Mhm.
And to me, that's sickening. This school is operating more like a hedge fund or a private equity firm instead of an institution with students.
Yeah, I would just add to that is that this is, I think we can both agree that there's amazing people at our school.
Hmm.
Two amazing people right here, I'd like to
Yeah.
say. I think just shows that this is a systemic issue and an institutional issue versus interpersonal, though that does happen. There are definitely a lot of people that have tried to go at bat for us, or me
Hmm.
specifically, during the past week that have been shut down just due to the power that Columbia administration has. And um, it's very evident what they're willing to do. And in this case, sacrifice my housing, my food, and my medical care security in order to promote their own agenda. I think it also speaks to the influences and the political and financial investments that Colombia has in Israel.
Oh
And
yeah, can you guys talk about that?
yeah, so we have a saying that it's very much like the U.S. When Israel bombs, Colombia pays.
Hmm.
Colombia is funding this genocide, just like the greater United States is funding this genocide in Gaza right now. And so any attack on, or what they perceive as an attack on
Hmm.
Israel or Zionism, is therefore an attack on Colombia's interests, financial and political interests. So I think that plays in a big part into why Colombia is trying so hard to silence us and repress
Hmm.
us, is because they know that we see right through them.
Hmm.
We see where their investments are. Um, for example, they're building a whole global center and have a dual degree with the Tel Aviv Global Center. Um, that's also directly linked to the displacement of Black and Brown people in Harlem and
Hmm.
Manhattanville. So Colombia extends worldwide in just domination and just complete disregard for marginalized communities.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that we're waking up. The students have been woken up. I think
Hmm.
we're waking up the communities, to people that haven't necessarily seen this before. We're also getting in touch and in coalition with community members that have been fighting this for a while, and I think it's scaring them. And
Absolutely.
quite frankly, like, they should be afraid of the collective power and our ability to make change,
Hmm.
and advocate for a more just society.
I also wanted to add a big reason why we're pushing divestment too is because so Colombia has a massive endowment, and for anybody who doesn't know, endowment is just like um, resources or stocks investments that a company or college manages. Colombia's endowment is $12 billion, over $12 billion. It's one of the largest in the country, and that endowment is being funded by our tuition dollars. It's also being funded towards causes and companies that we do not agree with. For example, Colombia has investments in Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin is one of the biggest weapons manufacturers for the genocide that is going on with Gaza, in Gaza. And as a student, I don't want my tuition dollars. I don't want my tuition dollars going towards bombing Palestinians. And also, too, is Colombia has a legacy of divestment. Colombia was one of the first schools in the country to divest from private prisons. They've been one of the first schools in the country to divest from South African apartheid. We've divested before and we'll do it again.